The Mintek at 90 conference commemorates 90 years of outstanding contributions to the mining and metallurgical industry. This two-day conference hosts thought leaders from across the globe to celebrate a legacy of innovation while setting the stage for a sustainable future in the mining sector. To kick off day one, Dr. Molefi Mutuku, CEO of Mintek, takes us through the evolution of the organization and its role in the global mining landscape. Thank you so much for joining us. Briefly take us through the evolution of Mintek over the past 90 years and how you remain relevant as a global player.
Mintek was established in 1934. At that time, it was primarily focusing on the technical challenges facing our key minerals then. With time, it evolved to increase its expertise, but what was important in Mintek's transformation was to work with industry and start to address industry-specific challenges. And we have heard many speakers talking about Mintek's contribution in the gold sector by developing technologies that were appropriate for the gold sector, like resin in pulp, carbon in pulp, and so many other technologies. So by working with industry, we were able to remain relevant, but also to work with partners globally. And this is where you see Mintek's footprint globally in more than 46 countries.
And what is the overarching theme of this conference?
It is about collaboration. It is about partnerships. It is about required skills. It is important that we do this inclusively and also making sure that we don't leave our communities behind. We have learned a lot in the past 90 years, but also we need to look forward to say, how do we continue to be relevant and to continue to address industry-specific challenges, but also looking at the emerging minerals, and a lot of people spoke about critical minerals. Mintek is a key player in that area.
Dr. Mutuku, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
The Minister of Mineral and Petroleum Resources, Gwede Mandashe, delves into the role of the government in supporting the mining sector. Minister, what is the role of the government in supporting conferences like the Mintek 90 conference?
Mintek is a research institution. It belongs to the state. It's one of the 12 entities under our department. We're happy that they're having this conference. They are trying to reach out to partners in the sector and experts in the academia. That is very important.
Let's talk about how global economic trends such as geopolitical tensions and supply chain disruptions, how that impacts the mining sector.
Geopolitics impact everything. That's why you find that despite the fact that naturally commodity prices are cyclical, they go up and down. That is the nature of mining. But geopolitics have a serious impact on acceleration, parallel of decline, and pushing up the price of oil, for example, and make us pay more at the pump. And that is the impact of geopolitics in the economy. And we must be very smart in terms of research and development. And Mintek is at the cutting edge of that.
Honourable Minister, thank you so much for that.
Thank you very much.
Executive Dean at Wits University, Prof. Thokozani Majozi, shares key takeaways on how universities can address the skills gap in the mining sector to foster sustainable mining practices that reduce environmental impacts. Professor, what are the key takeaways and insights from the panel discussion, Human Capital for the Future of the Minerals Industry?
Yes, well, there are quite a few takeaways, but maybe two stood out for me. One of them is really strengthening our collaboration, in other words, say academia and the industry, making sure that at all times the left hand knows what the right hand is doing. What you see today in South Africa in particular is that there are many opportunities that we have not really tapped into, simply because academia is doing one thing on one end and the private sector is doing another. And if we forge stronger collaborations that would remove all the duplication of effort and optimize the use of our very limited resources. So that's one of the issues that came out. And then the other one was really identifying some of the key or critical areas that we should focus on going forward, particularly in the mining sector. And we did agree that the main issues really are along the lines of water resource management, just energy transition. As you know, that's a major user of energy. You also know that South Africa is one of the driest countries in the world, so water and energy are very, very important in our economic growth. But we also identified issues of advanced materials, for example, and digitalization. So these are 4 key areas that we should focus on and build critical talent going forward.
But how can we address the skills gap in the mining industry, particularly looking at technical and leadership skills?
So basically, you need to start inculcating very early that all of us have to go back to the drawing board. All of us have to learn, unlearn, and be upskilled in one way or another. The best way to do this is to ensure that we provide as much skills base as possible in the mining sector. We make sure that those who come from universities are adequately equipped, not just to apply their knowledge, but also to impart their knowledge to those that they find in the workforce.
And just to wrap up, how can South Africa promote sustainable mining practices and reduce the environmental impact on mining operations?
Yeah, so basically we have to work sustainably. We have to start operating sustainably, meaning that where, for example, we're using X tons of water to produce Y tons of, say, copper or gold, we have to revise that and say, is that X the optimal or not? So we are teaching our students optimization skills of redesigning the entire industry so that it is sustainable.
It's day 2 of the Mintek at 90 conference, a milestone event that continues to shape the future of South Africa's mining and metallurgical industry. Marike Gerike, Group Executive for Extractive Metallurgy at Mintek, shares her insights on how the industry can remain sustainable in a rapidly changing world. Marike, thank you so much for joining us. What are the main challenges South Africa faces in unlocking its mineral resources?
Yes, I think as you may know, our ore grades are getting lower. It's also getting more and more complex. So we need to think about, unlocking these resources in more innovative ways. We also need to become more sustainable when we process these minerals. So we're looking at more integrated flow sheets where we look at energy efficient processes, making it water efficient, minimize waste. So those are some of the challenges that we need to address, and we need more research in these aspects. And I think for the mining companies, this is also a challenge because they also need to comply with all the ESG regulations. And so Mintek is doing quite a lot of work in this area in support of the industry.
Just from your opinion, what are the most impactful insights or takeaways from this conference?
I think over the past day or so, we've spoken quite a lot about what's happening in industry. I think there are challenges. I think we all realize that we need to look at beneficiation in more detail, do more research on it, create an environment in South Africa where we actually take the value from these ores and benefit South Africa and not just export these raw materials. And I think since we are busy finalizing our critical mineral strategy, as the Minister also said yesterday, we're looking at the state of the mining. We need to think what is the way forward to extend our value chains towards not only exporting our raw materials, but really creating industries in South Africa for the benefit of the people of South Africa as well.
Daphne Mashile-Nkosi, Executive Chairperson of Kalahari Manganese, shares her perspective on how the mining industry can foster greater collaborations. Thank you so much for joining us. How can Kalahari Manganese and Mintek collaborate to drive innovation, sustainability and environmental stewardship in the industry?
Okay. Kalahari and Mintek have always had a relationship. We've done things together. The fact that we are now introducing the low volatile, high grade manganese product, it's because we're able to actually feed our sinter plant and produce a high end product based on the fact that the research that we did with Mintek has actually produced one of the best products. And I'll say this because some of the biggest producers of sinter internationally have actually tested our product and actually gave us results that showed that our product actually does perform very well during the steel making. Number one, it does save cost in terms of energy. Number two, it does, also perform well in terms of the furnaces where they actually put it in.
And just looking at the conference, how can the conference continue to facilitate collaboration between the mining industry, technology providers and government to address some of the challenges facing the sector?
I think some of the challenges facing the sector is obviously technology and innovation, which is something that is new. The fourth industrial revolution in terms of how we can actually industrialize our continent is actually very important. Mintek plays a role in terms of the technology advancement, the use of robotics, and the use of smart mining, where, we can look at machines and people and how we can actually better skill our people so that the tsunami that we see with the unemployment of our youth can actually create better jobs, better paying jobs, miners that are smart enough to actually mine, but at the same time, embrace technology.
The private sector plays a huge role in the sector. How can it engage with the government to advocate for policies that support the mining industry?
I think there's a trust deficit between government and the private sector. And I think it's about time now that we must work together in the best interest of our people. The private sector has a lot of knowledge, experience in the mining sector, and government has to implement policies that actually are fit for purpose for the industry. And I think working together, it's no longer about talking about it because we talk about it. Some of us are actually tired of going to conferences and talking about it and not implementation. We need to push for implementation. Prior to 1975, South Africa was one of the biggest beneficiation, jurisdiction in the world. What happened to that? Look at ArcelorMittal, the biggest plant, Iron and Steel Corporation, which was started in 1939. Today, those are ghost towns in Vanderbijl Park, in Vereeniging. And I think we need to begin to industrialize, beneficiate, advocate. We must discourage people from selling raw ore because we continue to sell raw ore. As we sell raw ore, we actually export jobs as well.
As we conclude the Mintek at 90 conference, we leave with a renewed commitment to sustainable practices, technological innovation, and responsible resource management. For BusinessDay TV, I'm Kag Angove.